What if a single letter could change the way a child's dreams are heard forever? In the small room barely big enough for an old wooden bed, a shaky desk, and a chipped bookshelf, the only light came from a pale yellow desk lamp. Its glow formed a tiny circle against the vast ocean of darkness. Outside the city still buzzed distant traffic, a horn fading into silence until only the quiet breath of the night remained. But inside this room, all sound seemed frozen. Only the faint tap of a pencil against a blank sheet of paper broke the stillness. A small hand rested on a grid-lined notebook. The fingers were thin knuckles, sharp, trembling as if carrying the weight of the world. The boy sat hunched over the desk, messy hair falling across his face. His timid, uncertain eyes stared at the empty whiteness before him. That emptiness suddenly felt terrifying, like a mirror reflecting all the words he had never dared to speak. He lifted the pencil, paused, lowered it, lifted it again. The tip touched the paper, leaving a faint gray mark, then stopped. His heartbeat pounded so hard he could hear it thudding inside his chest, louder than the silence. His lips parted dry and cracked, and out came a whisper, as if even the shadows might overhear. "Mom, Dad, if I tell you my dream, would you believe me?" The question dissolved into the air. No answer came. Only the lamp flickered, swaying slightly as though uncertain too. The boy's gaze shifted toward the window. Beyond it, the night sky stretched wide, dotted with scattered stars too far away to brighten this cramped little room. For a fleeting moment, he imagined those stars whispering to each other, gossiping about a child below who carried a secret. A secret fragile and yet powerful enough to change his whole life. He bent forward, the yellow light spilling across the bridge of his nose, casting a long shadow across the page. His hand gripped the pencil, tight knuckles pale. He shut his eyes and drew in a deep breath. In the silence, the tick-tock of the wall clock grew heavy, deliberate. Each second struck like a warning. If you don't write it now, you may never dare to write it at all. In his mind, echoes of his parents' voices surfaced, not sharp, just lingering. Stop dreaming so much. Focus on your studies. As long as you get a stable job one day, that's enough. Ordinary words, yet now they loomed like a wall between him and his dream. He felt small, isolated, like a climber with bare hands facing a sheer cliff. Tears welled up, but he bit his lip to keep them from falling. A bead of cold sweat slid down his temple, merging with the tension. He opened his eyes and looked again at the page. Still blank, still waiting. He inhaled, then exhaled slowly. The pencil began to move. The first stroke was shaky but determined. Each letter appeared slowly drawn straight from his heart. Dear Mom and Dad. At that instant, the air itself seemed to freeze. The silence of the room deepened. The scratch of graphite on paper rang clear each stroke, like cautious yet resolute footsteps on an uncharted road. Every word was a heartbeat. Every comma, every period was a stifled sob. He didn't write fast. He didn't write much. But every line carried the weight of a sky full of feelings. Outside, a draft slipped through the narrow window frame, rattling the paper. The lamp's glow wavered, scattering flickers of shadow and light across his face. For a moment, the scene looked like a slow-motion film. A small boy defying silence with his trembling voice etching his dream onto a blank page. No one knew what the letter would reveal. Whether it would begin with fear, with confession, or with a dream too impossible to say aloud. But the mystery itself made the moment almost unbearable. The boy lifted his head. His tear-streaked eyes shone with something rare, a strange mix of fear, longing, and a fierce spark of hope. A small light, but enough to push back the darkness in that room. And then he kept writing. The first line had already opened the door. The little house sat tucked away in a cramped neighborhood. Each morning, as sunlight slipped through the patchy tin roofs, the sounds of the street came alive, the squeak of a bread cart's wheels, a vendor's long call of hot, sticky rice, and the sharp clang of iron gates as neighbors prepared to head to work. Inside, the rooms were so simple that every object bore the scars of time, an old fan rattling with a faint buzz. A school desk pushed against the window with chipped edges, its surface stained with ink blots, like long-healed wounds. At that desk sat a 10-year-old boy, the story's heart. His wide eyes often drifted far beyond the cramped walls, staring out at the open sky. His black hair was messy, as if no comb had truly tamed it, and his hands were smudged with pencil marks. Beyond the window, the streets pulsed with traffic streams of cars flowing endlessly. In the distance, high-rise towers glowed with neon light, a jarring contrast to the dim, crowded room where the boy sat. His parents were always busy. His father worked construction, returning each day with clothes caked in cement dust, reeking of steel and sweat. His mother sold goods at the market, leaving before dawn, and coming home late at night, her hands swollen and red from lifting, weighing, and bargaining. To them, life was nothing more than a cycle of survival, food, money bills. At dinner, the family gathered around a worn wooden table. The meal was simple, a bowl of vegetable soup, a few pieces of braised fish, and sometimes a fried egg. His father placed food into his son's bowl, speaking with a weary voice that tried to sound firm. All you need to do is study hard. Get a stable career so you won't struggle like us. His mother added quickly, worry edging her tone. That's right. Don't chase wild dreams. Be a doctor, an engineer, a teacher. Any job is good as long as it's secure. The boy stayed silent, nodded, and chewed his rice without tasting it. In his mind, their words coiled like rope tightening until the dreams in his imagination shrank and hid away in the shadows. When night fell and the house went quiet, he would still be at the window gazing at the starlit sky. His small heart trembled with excitement every time he imagined himself in an astronaut's suit soaring into space, reaching for those distant stars. But when he turned back to see the four old walls of his room, the dream seemed fragile, slipping away like smoke. At school, he was neither outstanding nor failing, just average. During recess, while classmates played soccer or marbles, he often stood aside simply watching. Once a classmate asked, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" The group laughed and shouted their answers. A cop, a doctor, a teacher. When it was his turn, he hesitated. I want to fly into the sky. The kids burst into laughter. One slapped his shoulder, mocking, "What, you think you'll be an astronaut? Not here, not ever." He lowered his head. From that day on, he never spoke his dream aloud again. Teachers saw him only as a quiet boy, reserved and unremarkable. In writing assignments, while classmates dreamed on paper of saving lives as doctors or building skyscrapers as engineers, he wrote about wings in the sky. His essay earned a blunt remark. Good idea, but unrealistic. Be more practical. The red ink seared into his memory like a cruel erasure. Life slipped by in repetition school. In the morning home, in the afternoon dinner at night, then hours under the yellow desk lamp. Sometimes he overheard his parents' hushed discussions. The tutoring fees went up again this month. We'll manage, as long as he studies well. Their words weren't meant for him yet. Each one weighed heavy, pulling him deeper under the tide of numbers and burdens. Still in his eyes, a flicker remained. Every time he saw a headline about an astronaut in space or a scientist discovering something new, his heart raced. His dream wasn't dead, just hidden, waiting for the right moment to burst free. One night, as his exhausted parents argued over money, he sat quietly in the corner. His father's voice grew sharp. It's hard enough just to put food on the table. What's the point of dreaming? His mother sighed deeply. As long as he graduates and finds a normal job, that's enough. The words pierced his ears, circling endlessly. That night, sleep would not come. Instead, a question pulsed in his mind. If I told them my dream, would they believe me? He turned to the window. The sky was still bright with stars, as if calling out, "Believe in yourself." But when he turned back and faced the damp, crumbling walls, the dream shrank again, retreating into silence. Inside him, the contrast sharpened. On one side, the harsh reality of parents who wanted only stability. On the other, the burning desire to break free from this narrow room and touch the sky. That tension made him universal. He was every child we once were ordinary, yet carrying a dream so vast it could shake the heart. Some afternoons, when sunlight filtered through the dusty window, the boy sat at his desk quietly sketching. On the page, a plane spread its wings as if ready to tear open the sky. His eyes lit up each line, awkward but brimming with passion. Only when he drew did he feel free, escaping the narrow frame of numbers, homework, and the molds adults forced on him. But that day, his mother walked in a basket of vegetables in her hand. Her eyes flicked over his notebook for just a second. Then almost instinctively, she closed it and said sharply, "Focus on studying. Drawing won't get you anywhere." The words, so short and cold, cut through his imagined wings like a pair of shears. His small heart skipped, his once bright eyes dimmed, and his hand clenched the pencil until his knuckles turned white. The notebook was still there, but the dream that had just begun was crushed without mercy. That night, he lay awake staring at the ceiling. A crack in the plaster looked like a wound that would never heal. His mother's words echoed in his head. "Drawing won't get you anywhere." Tears seeped into his pillow, but he didn't dare cry out loud. School wasn't kinder. During a class meeting, the teacher asked each student about their future dreams. Some answered proudly, "I want to be a doctor to save lives. I want to be an engineer to build bridges." The class applauded enthusiastically. When it was his turn, his heart pounded. He took a breath, gathered every ounce of courage, and said, "I want to be a pilot, to fly high and see the whole world from the sky." The room burst into laughter. One boy teased, You're so small, how could you fly a plane?" Another sneered, "Pilots need to be good at math. You're not even good at that. The laughter echoed through the classroom. The teacher didn't laugh, but her stern face and flat tone struck even harder. "Dreams are fine, but you need to be more realistic. Focus on studying first." His classmates kept snickering behind him. He lowered his head, ears burning. From that moment on, he never dared to speak his dream aloud again. Not in front of teachers, not in front of friends. At home, the pressure mounted. Each night while his parents ate at the table, sighs mingled with the clatter of chopsticks. His father spoke about work. I carried 100 bags of cement today. Nearly slipped off the scaffolding. His mother complained, worked the whole day and barely made a profit. Prices keep going up. Amid their talk of survival, the boy ate silently, every bite stuck in his throat. He wanted to say, "Mom, Dad, I have a dream." But the moment he saw his father's slumped shoulders and his mother's tired eyes, the words shriveled, sinking like a stone down his chest. Once he finally blurted it out at dinner, I want to be a pilot." The room froze. His father set down his bowl and stared at him. "Stop daydreaming. Study hard first." His mother added, her voice tinged with irritation, "A pilot? We can't afford that. Just get a decent job, that's enough." The words landed like stones, crushing the fragile dream trembling inside him. He swallowed back tears, nodded quietly, but his heart splintered. After that, he kept everything to himself. Drawings of planes and rockets he tore into pieces and hid in his desk. Essays about his dreams he crumpled and threw away before anyone could read. His room became the only place that held his aspirations. Yet even there, they weren't safe for every time he saw his notebook. His mother's words came back like a sentence. Focus on studying. At night, he curled under his blanket, listening to the rain tapping on the tin roof. The steady drip outside clashed with the storm inside him. Part of him wanted to scream, "I won't give up. I will fly into the sky." But another part trembled. If my parents don't believe me, if everyone laughs, then what's the point of dreaming? The 10-year-old boy was trapped in a cycle. On one side, a burning desire. On the other, the fear of rejection. The pressure swelled inside him like a balloon stretched to its breaking point. Then came the day his class visited the science museum. Before him stood a gleaming model of a spacecraft glowing under the lights. He froze, wide-eyed, his trembling hand pressing against the protective glass. In that moment, the dream roared back alive, burning brighter than ever. But a classmate tugged his sleeve, laughing. "You think you'll fly that one day? Get real." The words hit like ice water on fire. He snatched his hand back, shrinking into himself as if he'd done something wrong. Once again, his dream was drowned. Days passed and he withdrew further. He became the quietest child in class. Teachers scolded, "You need to be more active, more confident." But none of them knew of the battle raging inside. At night, when the city lights flickered on and his parents wrestled with bills, he sat by the window. The dim street lamp cast a golden glow. The curtains swayed in the wind and the stars twinkled like secret signals from above. He asked himself, should I believe in my dream or bury it the way adults say and settle for a stable life? Fear and desire pulled at him from opposite ends. One voice whispered, "Give it up. Dreams are pointless if everyone calls them foolish." Another shouted, "Don't without a dream, you'll have nothing." He clenched his fist, nails digging into his skin. Sweat trickled down his temples, his heart pounded. In the dark, he trembled like a defeated fighter. But when he opened his eyes, there was still a flicker of fire. The greatest challenge didn't come from mockery or doubt. It came from within a relentless war between the urge to soar and the terror of being cast aside. Between living as an ordinary child or daring to chase something extraordinary. And in that very struggle, the story reached its turning point, the moment he would decide whether to finally write his dream into a letter for his parents. The small room was cloaked in darkness. The only light came from a dim yellow desk lamp casting restless patches of shadow across the walls. Outside, the city had fallen asleep, just the occasional hum of a distant car, and sometimes the bark of a dog echoing down the alley. But for the boy, this night was anything but quiet. Inside his chest, his heart pounded so fiercely it felt as if it might burst through his ribs. On the desk lay an open notebook. The blank white page stared back at him, empty yet challenging. In his trembling hand, a pencil, its tip worn down from being chewed too often. His dry lips bled where he had bitten too hard. His eyes were rimmed red, glistening on the verge of tears. The wall clock ticked steadily, each sound like time knocking at the door. With every tick, his heart tightened, each beat whispering the same warning. If you don't write tonight, you may never write at all. He lowered the pencil, scrawled a few shaky lines, then stopped. Erased. Tried again. Each time, fear swept over him. Voices echoed in his head. His parents, his teacher, his classmates. Stop daydreaming. Pilot, focus on your studies first. Be realistic. Each voice stabbed like a needle into his fragile heart. His hand shook harder until the pencil slipped clattering onto the desk, rolling to the floor. He bent quickly to pick it up, his small hand trembling against the cold wooden boards. When he sat upright again, his breath came fast and shallow. His eyes locked on the paper. Still blank, still waiting. That emptiness yawned before him like a vast abyss ready to swallow every ounce of his courage. Inside his mind, two voices battled. Write. Say your dream no matter if they believe it or not. Don't write. They'll laugh. You'll only disappoint them more. The tug of war left him gasping for air. A tear slipped from his eye, landing on the page, spreading into a blurry stain. He stared at it, then brushed it gently with his hand. And in that instant, something sparked inside his chest. If a tear can leave its mark, why can't a dream? He drew in a deep breath, raised his eyes to the ticking clock. The second hand crept forward, steady, relentless. Time moved on, uncaring. His dream would be buried forever if he didn't capture it now. He gripped the pencil knuckles, whitening, and lowered it again. This time his stroke trembled, but he didn't erase it. He let the words appear awkward, shaky, but resolute. Dear Mom and Dad. His heart seemed to stop. The world hushed. Only the faint scratch of graphite across paper remained. Each line he wrote felt like a breath set free. He continued, I know I'm just a child, but I have a big dream. I don't know what you'll think. Maybe you'll laugh, maybe you'll say it's foolish, but I can't keep it locked inside anymore. His hand trembled, yet never stopped. Tears streamed down, blurring some of the words. He wiped them quickly with his sleeve and kept writing as if afraid that pausing would shatter all his courage. The familiar voices rose once more. Focus on school. Dreaming won't get you anywhere. But this time he bit down, his eyes blazing, and another voice answered inside him. I will write whether anyone believes me or not. It wasn't spoken aloud. It was carved into every shaky letter, every trembling line across the page. If a camera were there, it would zoom slowly onto the notebook. Crooked handwriting, smudges of tears, uneven gaps between lines like gasps between sobs. And in that moment it would be clear this was not just a letter. It was a declaration, a turning point. The silent eruption of a small soul daring to defy the world to protect its dream. Outside, the night wind stirred the curtains. The lamp flickered, shadows dancing. But inside this tiny room, something vast had just shifted. The boy was no longer the fragile child cowering before scorn and doubt. In this moment he had chosen, and that choice was etched forever in the wavering yet powerful words, Mom, Dad. I want to tell you the biggest dream of my life. Dear Mom and Dad, tonight I'm writing from my small room under the dim yellow glow of my desk lamp, with the clock ticking like a reminder that time moves forward whether I'm afraid or not. I know I'm just a child, and maybe what I'm about to write will sound foolish. But if I don't write it, if I don't tell you, then this dream might die in my heart. And I don't want that to happen. Mom, Dad, I want to fly. The page opens into imagination, the boy dressed in a white astronaut suit, his visor reflecting the Milky Way. His heartbeat syncs with a soft piano melody. Each step he takes onto the launch platform feels less like cold steel, and more like a path paved with the notebook pages of his childhood. I want to fly high, not just because I love the clouds and the stars. I want to fly so I can see a world bigger than these walls, bigger than the kitchen, where Mom counts coins, bigger than Dad's weary shoulders after a long day of work. I want to look down at our city from above, glowing like a living map, and point to it saying, Mom, Dad, there I am. I made it. I know that to get there, I have to study hard, stay disciplined, and keep going harder than these silent words on paper. I know every time I'm lazy, every time I'm afraid it's another chain pulling me down. But I promise I'll start flying from the ground for my math homework, for my physics lessons, from every question I ask. Why is the sky blue? How does a plane stay in the air? In his imagined lab, he wears an oversized white coat, goggles slipping on his nose, his small hands resting on a model airplane wing. Invisible currents swirl around it, glowing lines tracing airflow. The piano now joins with a soft violin, like wind lifting wings. But I don't just want to fly. I want to build things no one has thought of before. A bridge between neighborhoods so kids can get to school more easily. A library with lights that never go out so people can read even during blackouts. A simple water filter built from scraps so our drinking water won't taste strange. I don't know if these things would make you proud, but when I close my eyes, I see my hand sketching blueprints, glowing against a dark sky like constellations waiting to be named. Drawings swirl around him, a water filter made from bottles, a blueprint for a library tucked in an alley, solar-powered lamps for reading. His pencil glows with every stroke, shaky yet determined. The soundtrack adds a faint tapping beat like a pencil against paper. I want to be a builder of dreams, whether I become a pilot, a scientist, or even an artist. Yes, even an artist, Mom and Dad. I want to draw what I see inside stars, not as dots of light, but as gentle eyes watching over the world. Buildings not just concrete, but giant instruments that sing when the wind rushes through them. Maybe my drawings will never sell. Maybe no one will hang them on a wall. But if one person smiles, if one child stares and whispers, why, then maybe I've done something. He imagines standing on a dim stage holding a pencil sketch, a sky filled with paper kites, children below clutching strings. A single spotlight falls on him. No applause, just a silent nod from his older self in the audience. T. I know my dream might scare you, because I'm young, because our house is small, because money is tight, because stable sounds safer than fly. I know. I hear it every day like rain drumming on the roof. But there's another sound inside me that won't stop the call of the sky. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply asks, do you really want this? And tonight I answer, I do. The music swells, strings stretching longer. The launch pad counts down not in numbers but in letters, D-R-E-A-M. At the final letter, smoke rises not from a rocket, but from a giant paper kite soaring upward, string running through small hands. I want this not to prove others wrong, but to prove to myself that dreams are not just things in books or on TV. I want it so that when Mom counts coins, there's also a sketch on the table showing how to make a lamp from old batteries. So when Dad ties his worn shoes, he finds a design for stronger, lighter ones waiting on the chair. Maybe I'm just a kid, but sometimes kids notice things adults forget. Back in his small room, the rickety desk, the flickering lamp. He leans forward, writing steadily. His shoulders are still small, but his back is straight. His eyes focus his hand, less shaky now. The music quiets, leaving only the scratch of pencil moving across paper. Mom. Dad, if you asked me, are you afraid? I'd say yes. I'm afraid of hard exams, of being laughed at, of doubtful looks. I'm afraid of standing frozen at a test room door. I'm afraid of the day you closed my sketchbook and said, focus on school. I'm very afraid. But tonight I learned something small. Fear doesn't mean stop. If fear always stopped us, there would be no kites in the sky, no bridges across rivers, no stories painted in color, no one left to ask, why? A street corner at noon, pavement burning hot. The boy in his imagination lays bricks for a small bridge. Each brick brings back a memory, a teacher's red ink scolding classmates' laughter, his mother's sigh, his father's sweat. Still he lays another brick. I don't expect you to believe me right away. I only ask you to keep this letter. One day if you find it again yellowed with age, please read it and smile even just a little. Because maybe by then I'll have touched part of this dream. Or maybe I won't have reached it at all. But at least I won't have abandoned it. And if I fall, if I fail an exam, if I'm mocked, if I'm rejected, please don't say, see, dreams are useless. Please just say, try again, try differently. Just that one sentence and I'll have the courage to stand again. A schoolyard at dusk. The field empty. Alone, the boy ties the string of his handmade kite. The wind rises, the kite wobbles, then steadies and soars. His face lifts, eyes shining. I don't know what the future holds, but I know what I'll do tomorrow. I'll wake earlier to read one more page of physics. I'll ask teachers questions even if I'm shy. I'll redraw sketches instead of tearing them up. I'll practice English by talking to myself in the mirror. I'll run so my heart grows strong enough to beat through nerves. I'll do small things every day, because I believe small steps stack into a long flight path. A calendar marked with pencil squares, each box filled with tiny habits. 20 minutes reading, 20 minutes sketching, 30 minutes homework, 10 minutes running. The soundtrack adds a steady marching rhythm. Mom, Dad. I once wanted to stay silent. I thought if I didn't speak, I wouldn't be laughed at. But silence is also a way of abandoning myself. Tonight, I refuse silence. I'm telling you what I want. I want to fly. I want to build. I want to draw. I want to do the things that make my heart race with excitement, not just with fear. The launch pad again, this time, a youth science fair stage. The boy stands beside a homemade solar-powered fan built from scraps. The blades spin. A small audience watches an old woman smiling, a child cheering softly, and a man looking like his father standing at the doorway silent, gripping his backpack strap. If one day you see me sitting at the window longer than usual, don't think I'm wasting time. Maybe I'm looking at the stars, remembering why I began. If one day my floor is covered in crumpled papers, don't get angry, those are failed attempts, each one a step closer. If one day my shoes are muddy, don't scold me. Maybe I ran to the library or chased down an idea before it disappeared. His small hand grips the pencil, words flowing steadier, denser. Tears no longer fall in torrents. Only faint brown stains mark where they once did. His gaze is calm, his lips curved in the faintest smile. The music rises to a brighter chord. Mom. Dad, maybe I'll never be a pilot. Maybe I'll never become a scientist or an artist in the way people imagine. But I promise I'll become someone who doesn't give up. Someone grateful for every meal, every warm coat, every drop of sweat you've given me. I promise I'll turn that love into something meaningful for myself and for others. A hazy glimpse of the future, the boy now older shows children how to tie kites. A small library glows in an alleyway. A school lab hums with makeshift experiments. A pencil drawing hangs on a classroom wallpaper, rough, but colors alive. B. I want to make you proud, not with a stack of certificates, but with the look in my eyes when I tell you, I gave it my all. One day when I point to the sky, I don't want it to feel unreachable anymore. I want you to feel it's as close as your own hand, because I've built a ladder of patience reaching up to it. Mom, Dad. If I'm ever afraid, please don't pull me down. Just hold my hand a little. The rest let me climb on my own. Set. Tonight I fold this letter. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know I'm different now. Because tonight I dared to write, I dared to speak. Thank you for listening, even if only with your eyes, your hands, or a sigh. Love, your son. The boy sets down the pencil. His small hand smooths the paper flat. The desk lamp steadies. The fire in his eyes no longer flickers. It shines. He folds the letter carefully, each crease crisp, like closing one chapter of fear and opening another of courage. He is still just a child in a dark room. But from this night on, the dark is no longer a place to hide. It has become the night sky, and the night sky has stars. The small room remained the same. The old wooden desk, the dim yellow lamp, the steady tick of the clock. Yet after the letter was written, the space felt transformed. It was no longer a cramped cocoon trapping a child in fear. It had become the witness of a quiet metamorphosis. The boy gently set his pencil down, his small hands trembling yet lighter than before. The last tear had dried on his cheek, leaving a salty trace without the sting. He drew in a long breath and lifted his eyes to the page before him. The lines of shaky handwriting were still there, crooked, smudged, imperfect, but carrying the whole of his heart. The final words in the letter read, Mom, Dad. I don't need you to believe me right away. Just keep this letter. One day I'll prove that my dream was never foolish. He whispered the lines silently to himself, then gave a small nod. It was more than an ending, it was a promise. A vow to himself. Slowly, carefully, he folded the letter as though folding a pair of paper wings. The soft rustle of paper filled the quiet night like a new breath. He smoothed the crease with his fingertips, feeling its rough warmth. The letter was no longer paper and ink. It had become a fragment of his soul, a spark kindled from the ashes of rejection. He pulled open the desk drawer. Inside lay a jumble of books, broken pencils, and crumpled scraps. He placed the letter neatly on top. When the drawer slid shut, his eyes softened, and the corners of his mouth curved into a faint smile. A smile not because the dream was realized, but because he had finally found the strength to never be silent again. In that moment, the room seemed brighter. The lamp hadn't changed, but the light in his eyes had. Gone was the distant, anxious stare. In its place shone a look of quiet resolve, small but steady, like a spark in the night waiting for the wind to rise. Viewers would feel their throat tighten here. Because in the simple image of a child tucking away a letter, there is something deeply familiar. Who hasn't had a dream once dismissed as unrealistic? Who hasn't carried words they longed to say, but never dared? The letter becomes a mirror reflecting the childhood of us all. And then the message rises clear yet gentle. Sometimes the biggest dreams are written in the smallest handwriting, and a parent's belief can be the very first wings that let a child fly. What about you? If you could write one letter to your younger self about your dreams, what would you say? Maybe someone you know is hiding their childhood dream too. Share this story with them, it might be the sign they've been waiting for. If stories like this touched your heart, subscribe and join us. Every week we tell another story that reminds us dreams never really die.